Hi there, Justin Parsley coming to you through your choice of audio listening pleasure, broadcasting from the crossroads of America. Welcome to the inaugural episode of The Circle of Jerks. This is a podcast specializing in unsanctioned conversation about any topic that comes to mind. We here at The Circle of Jerks encourage you to let your freak flag fly and let your asshole shine. Figuratively, of course. Here in the studio apartment, the man himself, my good friend and multiple-time co-worker Chris Jones. Chris, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for agreeing to join me on the first episode of this podcast. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. Glad to be here on the inaugural episode of Circle Jerks.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine anyone better to be on this episode, especially probably in your own mind. But we'll get to that ego a little bit later. Chris, tell the listeners a little bit about how you came into the business of professional wrestling.
Well, obviously, when I was younger, grew up watching wrestling with my uncle. He was a big wrestling fan. My uncle's dad was a big wrestling fan, and my uncle's grandpa was a big wrestling fan, which would be my great-grandpa. So all the old WCW shows back in the day, 95, 96, all four of us kneeling on the front room floor watching old wrestling pay-per-views, Starrcade.
Absolutely.
Back with American Sting before he was white and black, and all the good old shows. We watched WCW, we watched WWF, we watched ECW. They even had me watching some of the older stuff with like Gorgeous George and all those other people.
Oh wow, you had access to stuff like that even?
Well, they're super old, so.
But yeah, like, what was it? It wouldn't have been like VHS, right? It would have been like, was it like a movie projector?
It was super old. So watched a lot of wrestling, and one of my dreams was to be a professional wrestler. Obviously, didn't kind of accomplished it, kind of didn't. At one point, I think 1996 or 97, I just started wrestling with a couple friends, in the side yard, Loper Commons, and it escalated from there. I met someone known as Roddy Lewis Moore Jr., and seeing he was doing a little wrestling thing over at the school area, and I've always been interested in doing some type of wrestling, and he introduced me to, well, Roddy didn't like me at first. It's been well spoken. I've explained the story several times.
But never on a public forum, so yeah. Just go ahead and...
If it would not have been for, like, I guess my devotedness to becoming some type of wrestling and participating in that, he told me if I were to take a powerbomb on concrete, he'd let me wrestle with you guys. You weren't even there yet.
No. No, obviously, because I would have said, that's a bad idea, Chris.
This was before you were in the picture, so, like, he just said it because he was thinking that, you know, this guy's, he's not going to do this. We're going to get out of having to work with this guy. So I took the powerbomb on concrete at Loper, and I believe he's, like, it probably wasn't the exact words, but it was along the lines of, you're fucking stupid. But,
who was the guy who came up with the idea, though?
It was Roddy.
I know, I'm just kidding.
It was Roddy.
That's a dumb idea.
We took the powerbomb on concrete, and then he introduced me to you, and my first wrestling show was probably one of the most wildest wrestling shows.
Where was that at?
It was at Loper with you guys.
Oh, with the one that I was a part of?
Yeah, I just hadn't been introduced to you yet, and he wasn't going to introduce me.
Okay, I got it.
So I took the powerbomb, and then he explained that I was going to wrestle, and that's when we came up with the... First it was the Joker gimmick where I wore the Scream mask or whatever.
Right.
And I wrestled Donnie Tharp. My first match, 7 seconds, won the hardcore title. It was like it was weird. It was like a 10-match show. And at some point, Roddy was a champion at that day. Mm-hmm. And he ended up going on to be defeated and losing. And, like, I don't know, storyline just changed, like, on the spur of the moment back then. We kind of just did what we wanted.
Yeah, we were real young. And
like, I was supposed to be allied with Roddy or something, and he turned his back on me and unmasked me, beat me for my belt, because it was the 24/7 rule for the hardcore title. Unmasked me, and that's how Y2J Chris Jones was born. I guess that was probably the start of the ego, I guess.
So many gimmick infringements there as we go along, looking back in the past at Y2J Chris Jones, for example. I mean, that's just absurd to think that we were that unoriginal as kids, especially with the imaginations that we had to be backyard wrestling anyways on a playground. I find it real interesting that you can recollect so much of that, because I remember bits and pieces, but
I actually did there was a big report thing. Freshman year in high school, they had us write something that probably influenced our life the most, and I wrote out my entire wrestling career, from wrestling outside Loper in a side yard, people throwing like diaper boxes just for shit for us to beat the fuck out of each other with, all the way up to the training with NEW, and that probably ended right there. Probably about the NEW time would be about freshman year. So I mean, that whole 9-10 years, whatever it was, like I had to write a book report about it. So
that seems crazy, but I think that's phenomenal. I think that's awesome that you can recall all that and that you turned it into schoolwork at that. That brings me to my next question, actually. Why don't you give us a little more insight on your pro experience and the background of training with NEW, or what you did with that company?
Well, a lot of us, before I really knew Josh Fletcher, I wouldn't really consider us really good friends back then, because no one really knew each other. We just showed up, we'd do our wrestling thing, and we went home. Yeah. And, a lot of us were going to the NEW shows. I mean, I went to the shows. I think you went to a couple back then. Course, Josh went to the show. Roddy went to the show. And, like, even our buddies that weren't, like, they hung out with us, so they kind of were brought into the wrestling, but they weren't as interested as us. And that was back when, like, they had Hacksaw Jim Duggan coming to NEW.
Right, I remember that.
They had the Grandmaster Sexay stuff, and I was the kid that threw the silly string to him.
Oh, no kidding?
That was me.
My buddy Caleb Kearns, actually, I graduated high school with him. He's the kid who got into the ring
and did the worm.
Yeah, that was.
I went with my uncle, my cousin, this big black guy. His name was Tony, and we tried to get him to get in there and do the Rikishi part.
It wasn't happening.
It wasn't happening for him, but like, I've been involved like in non-wrestling capacity with NEW. I went to all their shows. Like, I never missed a show. Dice Man Ronnie Vegas spit on me when I was 12. Okay, but it came down to at the Civic Center. I guess it's the Park and Recreations building now, probably no longer called the Civic Center. And kind of started talking to Josh a little bit more because I started wrestling with XCW. And I think that was winding down the end of the BYW era. Mm-hmm. And, he actually introduced me to him or whatever. He's like, well, I think it was more like they were trying to put off some of the work. That way the NEW guys can have like more time to discuss certain things and go over whatever things independent wrestling companies have to do business-wise. Mm-hmm. And they wanted extra help to be able to set up the ring and stuff. So it was kind of like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We went there, we set up the ring, and they gave us the basics. They gave us, the bumps, the lockups, the spots. We never got the chance to develop the full like psychology. Yeah. Because, we're kids in high school. We didn't have a lot of time to devote towards it.
Right.
And I was probably the last person to stop training with NEW back then, because, like, it was me, Josh Fletcher, Ryan Hallgarth, Daniel Smitley, Benji, Roddy, and a couple other people. And, like, there were some issues with certain people that couldn't train. Like, Smitley had a hard time seeing. He has the head glasses. Yeah. And he couldn't see without his glasses. He didn't have contacts or anything. And Dylan had a heart issue when he was younger and had to get heart surgery, so they didn't really feel comfortable training Dylan back then. And, like, a lot of people just lost the drive and the motivation to continue. And they had, it was me, Benji, I don't know if it was Daniel Covington or somebody else, but, like, they were interested in a couple of us doing some small stuff back then. Obviously we couldn't do too much. We were in high school. And, we were at Tom Randolph's house, and he was trying to get us to throw gimmick names or see what we could come up with on our own and stuff. And that's, like, I don't know if you ever heard of Beautiful Benji Burcham.
Of course, yeah.
But that's where that was come, and they wanted me to be the hype Chris Jones. And I think it just kind of went downhill from there because I stopped playing freshman football. And I was, like, pulling away from all, like, the important school stuff people should probably experience during school. Like, I didn't go to either junior or senior prom. I skipped both to go to wrestling training.
Here. I was the same, but I didn't go to wrestling training. I was probably having sex with some bro.
But I skipped, I had people ask me to go to prom. I told them no. I was doing the wrestling training. And probably the highlight of back then at the Civic Center area is we had a practice 6-man tag match. I'd probably call it a dark match. It was a guy named Lotus, Crazy J. I'm not sure who the other person was, but it was like me.
Lotus and Crazy J, is that Dave and Jake Chris, or are these backyarders as well?
No, these were actual independent. I don't know. I don't know their actual
Dave
names.
and Jake Chris. You know who they are? Would you recognize them if you saw them?
Yeah, I do know they're brothers.
Yeah. They are brothers. Okay, yeah. It's probably they're from Ohio, and they did a lot of independent work around here. But go on. Sorry about that.
But I was pretty excited back then. A young kid getting an actual, even though it's not on camera, a dark match with some other people. So we got to do some stuff. We practiced some stuff. We went over some stuff, and it was probably at that point in time probably the most fun I've had wrestling. And I thought that was a very proud accomplishment.
Sure.
And then I'd call it the NEW era kind of started dying down there. They had to move from the Civic Center. They moved to the Sanctuary Shelbyville. I think it's now a woman's shelter or something over on Washington Street. We went there. Civic Center had a whole bunch of rules with the park and recreations thing. Had to be done a certain way.
Yeah.
And we started doing the Sanctuary Shelbyville, and that's where I got to do spots in the show. There was one spot where Tom had this shit really kicked the fuck out of him. Like he was beat the fuck up. And they came up with this idea for us to carry Tom out on a makeshift table, I guess it'd be called really a makeshift stretcher. But we carried Tom out, and then I got to do another spot in the show with Hillbilly Jed and Indiana Kid.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's probably my second favorite moment with NEW. And me and Daniel Covington were security for that show. And
did you do any of the battle royals that they had? Because I know Rod participated in some of the over-the-top battle royals.
I think I did one, but we did that. We can't. It was they were both good guys, and they turned on the audience, turned heel. Something involved with Bobby Black, and we came out to save Bobby Black, and they beat the fuck out of us. I know it sounds stupid, but I enjoyed every second getting my ass kicked.
Sure.
They pulled Daniel in for a package pile driver, and Daniel's a small guy. So for Daniel to bounce as high as he did off the canvas on his head, I was like, oh fuck, well now it's my turn. And they wrapped me up in the ropes and gave me 3 chops because that was part of Indiana Kid things, so those chops. And they gave me this crazy move. They Irish whipped me. I came off the ropes. They caught me for a hip toss, flipped me over, caught my legs, and then flipped me back over. And I did a front bump. It was kind of I did a shooting star, but
with assistance.
With assistance. And then the last professional thing I remember that I got to do, I think I did a battle royal, but I also got to have I had a dark match with a guy named Jeremy Gravier, formerly known as Jeremiah Graber. I don't know what his name is nowadays, but that was pretty epic. I lost.
Yeah.
Figures.
Yeah.
But
I've never heard of him before. Is he on the independent scene then?
Last time I knew, he was Tom's manager at All Star Pro Wrestling.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what his name is nowadays, but that's
the 2 guys you were talking about.
Yeah.
By chance, yeah. Yeah, I'm actually friends with them on Facebook, so they may actually catch wind of this. I'll probably use hashtags on their names or whatever, but that's kind of cool that you got in there with them.
Lotus was probably my favorite wrestler back then, actually.
Which was dark-haired or the blonde-haired?
The dark hair.
Dark-haired?
Blonde was Crazy J.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, he's now the artist, which is a Prince-type gimmick on the independents, which is, it's pretty cool, but then Dave was actually, I think he dated Ashley Lane or Madison Rain from TNA. Is that right? Madison
Rain.
Yeah. I have some stories with him, but whenever I did some traveling with Dylan, I ran into Dave Christ a lot, and he was going to take me under his wing, but I never got over to Ohio.
But I've seen lots of, I've always been a fan of, a lot of people, they're more fans of the Goldbergs, the Brock Lesnars, the Stings, the Hulk Hogans.
Oh, yeah.
People ask me what wrestlers inspired me, or my favorite wrestlers, I'm going with people like, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho, AJ Styles, Rey Mysterio.
Some more of the cruiserweight scene that...
And I've kind of included that into, we'll call it my arsenal over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I wrestled, like, BYWE, the biggest thing I probably did was, like, a lion salt. But that's not, I don't really consider that cruiserweight type, but, when you brought the UIW thing around and some of the things I was able to do with Tommy and Andy, like we did the flipping power driver, the Canadian Destroyer, and the Styles Clash, and just all the new stuff I've been able to add over my arsenal because I've been able to expand and learn. But, like, I've always been more drawn to the cruiserweight style, so now that, WWE is advertising, they have the 205 Live, and...
Yeah. I don't feel like they make them the same way that WCW did. I think WCW emphasized them a lot better, and you could tell these guys are going to be main event stars, whereas 205, I feel like they just kind of write it off. And
I'm also a big fan of Lucha Underground style, like wrestling, like Prince Puma and Johnny Mundo and Angelico. I've got to meet. I've met Jack Evans before.
Oh, no kidding.
I've met a few of the lesser names, like Jack Evans has been in TNA before, but...
Yeah, but I think he was tag team partners with Tyson Kidd, maybe, on the independent circuit. I know he was linked to the newer Hart generation.
Yeah. He was one of the last few people that trained up there with Tyson Kidd and them.
Okay.
But, he wrestled with Angelico as a tag team partner for a few years down in AAA, so...
Okay.
I don't know how long he wrestled with Tyson Kidd or whatever, but... just the cruiserweight type of style people, those are the ones that have influenced me, so I didn't get to incorporate a lot of that into the few stints I had, the matches in NEW or whatever, because, they wanted the basics, they wanted you to be careful for liability purposes, but I'd say it was pretty successful.
That brings us to a really good question, because it's a hot topic right now. Headlock or dive? Have you seen that?
I've seen Twitter? That with Randy Orton and
Randy Orton, yeah, he's kind of a dick, but... what's your stance on that?
Dive. If you, I could put somebody, it goes back to when I say my arsenal. I could put somebody in a headlock, and I don't do a lot of chain wrestling with people, but, Benji's a good chain wrestler, and there's, a very small amount of people I can chain wrestle with, and we can put you in a headlock. We can do a headlock takeover. We could stay in a headlock for a half hour if we wanted to. Yeah. But... that doesn't entertain me as when I'm an audience member and I'm watching something. I want to see AJ Styles do the 450 off the rope. I want to see a dive over the top rope. I want it to be energetic. I want to be brought into.
So you're more captivated by the spot monkeys, if you will, or the high flyers.
I'm more captivated by the thrill seekers. Yeah. I'll call them the thrill seekers.
I mean, the 30-minute headlocks that you were talking about, the Gorgeous George days that you talked about earlier, where the entire match was a headlock, I cannot stand the emphasis that they put on it back then. But I think the way they incorporate it now, people like Randy Orton who can't work the high spots, I think it's kind of maybe the breather and the time to talk about the next spot in the match. Yeah. For more of the vets. But, you definitely hear more pops when there is a dive. I agree with you. I understand where you're coming from. So what's life like these days? Maybe outside of wrestling, what do you...
well, obviously, we both work at the same shithole. It's not terrible there. We make all right money. Yeah. Going from, my Wendy's days, your Starbucks days. Yeah. It's probably double. I know I make double what I make there. You make more than what I make.
I easily make double, yeah.
So, it's not too bad. Living on my own by myself, not anymore. Girlfriend lives here, but living outside, roommates and stuff, a lot better, a lot more freedom, and I don't feel like I'm imposing on them when I want to do something. Sure. I don't do much. I work a lot. Still doing the backyard wrestling stuff. I was gonna retire, and then there's that changed obviously, and
people can be persuasive.
Just I guess. Slaving away in Pilkington and wasting my life on video games, trying to enjoy as much as possible. You and I both have kids.
Yeah, I see your daughter every Sunday. Yeah. I see her on Snapchat.
She's 9.
Yeah, wow.
AB honor roll, so...
Excellent.
Trying to me and her, she lives with her aunt. We're trying to come up with something special to do this summer. We haven't come up with any ideas yet, but pretty much occupies all my time.
Yeah.
I have my athletic interests. I like to play basketball. I like to play football. But I also have my geeky interests. I play my video games, stream on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Twitch.tv/unit123123. Throw that little mark moment out there for you.
Absolutely.
But that pretty much occupies all my time. I actually have a question that I've mentioned before. Back in the HCW days, before the split with Roddy.
Yep.
Roddy went on to do, I don't know if it was SBW or NAW at the time. You went on to do BYWE. You picked me. You guys did the draft. You picked me before you picked Benji.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning? Because we didn't really know each other.
No, but I mean, I could just tell you were the most fluid, gifted talent, if you want to call it that. I mean, we're all yard tards at this point. But just your style, your finesse, I think your psychology was well developed enough. I know Benji knows a lot about the inside of the business, and I know that he's kind of like Rain Man when it comes to championship history and stuff like that. And that's great, but I thought as far as pure talent, I saw more in you. And I know I had a history with Benji, and I know that history is really fucked up now, but at that point in time, I just saw Chris Jones' potential. And I never knew where it was going to lead to. I never knew if we were going to go indie or not, but I thought you'd be the right guy to have on my side and let you know where you stood with me in case that ever became an opportunity, in case we ever advanced beyond the yard or the playground.
It was just interesting to me. We didn't really know each other, and I was the first pick over anybody. So it was interesting to me, and if
you were the John Cena, bro.
A lot. Chris Jericho back then.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know, but if it wasn't really for that draft, who's to say if I would have went to NAW or SBW at the time? You actually kind of introduced me to Josh Fletcher a little bit there, because I had no idea who he was. I mean, you're obviously more well versed with the general population. You talk to a lot more people than I do, so
I network.
You had a lot more people coming in and stuff, so.
So when that BYWE started, was that James Miller's house? Is that where it originated?
I'm pretty sure it was supposed to originate. We wrestled a few times at Kennedy Park.
But we got shut down there.
Yeah. Then we got shut down there, and then something to do with Bogstown. We got in a wreck in a van.
We did?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No.
James Miller's van.
We got into a wreck?
Maybe you weren't riding with us that day.
I don't think so.
But yeah, it wasn't a serious wreck, but car wreck.
So you're kind of like Ric Flair then.
It
wasn't a plane, it was a van.
But the gist of that is you kind of, indirectly, you, Roddy, both kind of had what's the word I'm looking for? Indirect helping hand into me continuing to wrestle and doing the NEW stuff, because if you guys would just stop wrestling, who's to say I would ever did NEW stuff? I would have never met Josh.
Yeah.
So
I don't even remember exactly how Fletcher came about. Do you have any idea? I don't know. Did I meet him through Benji? I can't really recall, because I know he did commentary at first. He did a lot of announcing and managing.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I know I came in. He was already there. You guys were friends back then. You had him. You had Nick Klaus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You had their NWO.
See, I remember the Kennedy Park stuff with that. I got VHS tapes that prove that we were there. The NWO gimmick that we had and everything. But yeah, that's crazy.
My first minor injury was at Kennedy Park. Their lion saw you threw a chair at me.
We were hardcore back then. We just got done being hardcore championship wrestling. We had to break away from it. Okay, so now you're back in the game. You're wrestling again. You're back in the ring. But take me back to the farewell show. Was that an emotional show initially? I mean, can you dip back into the archives of those feelings and
which farewell show per se? Because we did one in 2008. That was supposed to be the last show. And
what was the most recent one? Was that 2016?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
Because now you guys have a ring at this point.
We just got a ring, and my big issue with the whole situation was, they really didn't give us, like, Andy Miller, known as Corey Lee, and Tommy Merriman, a couple other people. They were going on to do some NEW stuff, All-Star Pro Wrestling, whichever it was. Yeah. And kudos to them. It's always good to go actually get the professional training and stuff from somebody else besides us, because at that time, it was mainly me and Roddy. We were bestowing what we knew. I mean, obviously, we don't know everything. Our psychology is not like it is on, like, WWE, TNA, all that stuff. Yeah. But, like, we instilled what we knew, and they wanted to go venture out, and they wanted to try something else. I respect that. But the way that it happened, like, all of a sudden, like, they weren't going to show up anymore, and they weren't going to be there. So we did the last show, and we had everybody show up. And knowing that, like, it's common knowledge that I have some legal issues or whatever, but that prevent me from doing certain things. And knowing that I couldn't go on to do it because, in my opinion, I mean, it's not cocky, it's not arrogant. I think I'm the best all-around backyard wrestler that I know of. Mm-hmm. And to not be able to go on with them or whatever, to see them flourish or, to try my hand at it again, because, you got Dylan Bostic that didn't train with us the first time around, and I got to I think I trained once when Dylan was started training. We got to train with a guy known as Diamond Dan. Mm-hmm. And Dylan's really successful for himself, and I'm very proud of him, being my cousin and all.
Throw that out there. It's just in the blood, huh?
Runs in the family.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even though they were backyard wrestling matches, me and Dylan had some pretty epic matches. And so everybody going on venture off, leaving us, and, like, I kind of just left myself out in the cold, I started my own company, not to as much success as not as too much success as you guys, you, Fletcher, Roddy. But the reason I started my wrestling company, and even though it was with younger people, was just to get that extra wrestling time. So now that wrestling's just abruptly gone, you're taking. It's like you're sucking a part of, like, someone's soul out, and and I had no control over anything. And honestly, it sucked. And for people that we've had history with for a long time, I would say it was definitely mixed feelings. Partially felt like I was being stabbed in the back, not by Fletcher, obviously, because he was being left in the dust, as was Roddy and Benji. Mm-hmm. Because when we left NEW's training, like, I don't know what their reasoning was, but the only reason I left training originally was because all my friends had left, and I was in high school. I had a lot of stuff to do there, but the main reason was my friends left. It's not fun for me anymore. Yeah. I wanted to do it because my friends were doing it.
Sure.
And then for everybody to go venture off and just kind of leave us in the dust, and I didn't like the last show, how it went down either. But that's the nature of the beast. That's the business.
I didn't really get to watch the last show. Was it just kind of overbooked and...
No,
clusterfuck, or
being as it was, like, I was under assumption it was going to be my last wrestling show ever, and everybody knows I played multiple personalities. I played LOL and Psycho Circus Clown. I've played Joker before. For all my personalities and personas to lose in the same show, all matches, like, and it's understandable. Gurky and the new guy we had just brought in that wasn't going to get a chance to wrestle again. I was fine with that. No biggie. They beat the Dark Carnival. And then, Kevin Harris, a new guy, just come in. We're going to end, so might as well give him his last hurrah because he wasn't going on NEW, All-Star Pro Wrestling. So I was fine losing to him. And in the main event, I lost the world title in a match against Fletch and Hazard, Roddy and Josh. And I felt like, a lot of people say it's just because it's you. I felt like I should have won the match, but the reason I feel like I should have won the match is because we did the spot after the match was over to let Gurky cash in and win. And when Gurky had first started, he was I guess we'll call him. He had a manager role for me. Mm-hmm. That was when I was doing the Brother Jones persona. Mm-hmm. And we broke up, and we were supposed to have a Chris Jones and a Madman James Gurky feud, and we never got to do that.
Right, full circle.
Yeah, so I figure, full circle, Gurky cashes in. After I win the match, Gurky cashes in and beats me.
Right, makes sense, yeah.
That's not how it went down. I don't write the shows, and
Yeah, but sometimes Vince McMahon pulls that same shit. I mean, you can watch TV and you
But
want to see.
I mean, I'm not bitter about it, but I just felt like I should at least won one of the matches. And I just felt like the people that left XCW, whether they were disappointed the way XCW was going or whatever, they could have done it in a better way. Like, I've said it to the day, I say it to everybody, like, if you were to come back and do your thing again, I'd probably wrestle again.
Mm-hmm.
It's...
Sorry about that interruption.
But, it's just, you know, you do stuff for your friends for years and years and years. You feel like there's a certain bit of respect that you deserve to get at some point. Like, I'm not upset with Tommy. I'm not upset with Andy. I'm glad they went and they tried it, and it wasn't for them. Mm-hmm. They came back when XCW started up again. I thought it was only going to be a one-show thing, and it turned out to be a whole new season, so.
All right. Well, I mean, at least you're in a good spot now, and winning matches again, hopefully.
I've only wrestled once since I was supposed to retire, and then decided that I'd come back or whatever. The first show back was pretty good. I got to, me thinking going in, it was going to be my last match. I got to go out the way I wanted to. You can ask anybody that's watching an XCW show, knows the storylines, that Chris Jones is the king of TLC. I've wrestled. Like, you asked me what I want to do, ladder match, TLC match. Anything involving ladders. I got to wrestle in a ladder match with 5 really good wrestlers, and it was a great match. I did a couple cool spots, you know, dive over the ropes, whatever. And then I got to come out. I lost. I got to stay after, you know, I challenged anybody in the locker room to come out, and the person that came out was Roddy's cousin, Austin Barngrover, known as Austin Chaos. And he had probably the biggest amount of potential to be the next big XCW superstar. Like, I think he could have been a Dylan Bostic. I think he could have went on to do something in the independent scene, but it's kind of like the same thing when I did the NEW training. I was in high school, and a lot of stuff influenced the decision to leave NEW. And, well, it turns out that was Austin's last match. We didn't know that at the time. It was supposed to be just mine. But we did this spot. We had a big EBW storyline, which was the name of my company back in the day. We did this EBW storyline back in the day, which involved Austin. Well, come to end of the match, the guy that was running the EBW storyline, the leader of EBW and XCW, the Gabe, he came out and brought out the EBW championship. So we got to do the big spot. Gabe hit Austin. I got to win my last match. It was just weird because I always said if I wanted to retire, I wanted to go out winning the same way that Lance Storm beat Chris Jericho one night stand.
Oh, yeah.
Just Incredible cheated. And like Joey Styles complains, like, how do you want to win your last match like that? For some reason, I always wanted to cheat to win my last match, and I got to go out with my company being involved in everything, so I was happy. I was ready to go. And then, obviously, Fletcher asked me quite a bit if I was really sure that's what I wanted to do, because obviously he wanted to keep me in the show. And I was done. So come the next show, I see some of the newer talent he's bringing in, and a couple of them have potential, and I'm interested to see where they go. And I showed up to the next show just to watch. I wanted to see how it was going to go. Like, just sitting there watching a match. I watched 2 matches, watched 3 matches, and then, you know, sitting next to Roddy's dad. Roddy's dad's a really, really big wrestling fan. Really big, and he's fucking hilarious. And he's like, why are you such a pussy, Chris? You're gonna fucking quit? You're one of the best ones out there. You're gonna fucking quit and stand next to a guy in a boot? Because Roddy's dad had an issue, and he's in a boot or whatever. But anyways, so I started to get the itch, and you could tell. And then Fletcher gave me the option. He's like, well, if you want to come back, we can do this spot, and I'll bring you back in. Here I am wrestling with XCW again. And it's ironic that my backyard wrestling career kind of started. It was kind of a Chris Jericho capacity.
Sure.
And coming back in, it's in a Chris Jericho capacity again. Whereas I'm not going to leave and go on tour with the Rock Band or anything. But helping some of the newer guys that have potential, like supposed to wrestle in a couple days from this podcast. Well, I guess it'd be the next day. But I'm supposed to wrestle a couple newer guys and help give them the push that they need, try to get over. And one guy I'm really excited to see develop, his name's DJ Walbert. So,
be on the lookout for him.
Yeah, possibly.
Possibly.
He's a hard-working kid. He's paid for all of his own wrestling stuff. His parents never bought his wrestling stuff for him. He found ways to earn money. So, I mean, he's got a good head on his shoulders. So,
excellent. Okay. Earlier you mentioned about feeling like you had a part of your soul ripped out whenever they took it all away from you. So, on that, how much were you invested like in the making of a product? So whether it be monetarily or financially or just creatively, how hands-on were you in anything you've ever been a part of? Whether it be, the backyard wrestling companies that I tried to run or the one that Fletcher's running currently, or
I've always been, it's kind of died off since I've gotten older. I have more responsibilities now, but like when I was younger, I'm always trying to find out what the storyline is, trying to come up with the perfect finish. I want the best finish, so I listen to everybody else's finishes, see what they're going to do. If they need help, I help them with their finish, but I've always been fully invested in everything, except for probably when I played football, because I don't think the coach liked me in high school. But I don't like to quit something that I start.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to all the companies that have ended, HCW, getting drafted BOW, BYW ended. Then we did the UIW. BOW came back for, I think it was like one show. We did like the bikini contest and stuff. Yeah. And then the UIW. So I tried to be as involved as possible. I didn't get as much, we didn't know each other as well as we did in BYW and stuff. Once we got to UIW, I got more mic time. I had more free will of what I was able to do. Creatively in XCW, I didn't have any creative control whatsoever. And when I first started wrestling, I could say I couldn't cut a promo. But now, over the years, I'd say I probably cut one of the best promos. And when I do something in a promo too, I get people's personal permissions, because obviously the more personal you are in a promo, the better the promo is.
Sure.
So I did the thing with Benji and his dad. I went to the graveyard, I cut the promo, it was fucking perfect.
Oh, wow.
I cut it, yeah, his dad's grave.
I gotta check that out.
And then I did a promo where I cut a promo outside Cork's Liquors, where his dad used to work. Another fucking 5-star promo, and I couldn't cut a fucking promo at first, so I'd say my main role these days is I have essentially creative control of the Chris Jones character whatsoever. Fletcher will pretty much let me do essentially whatever I want to do. He doesn't give me a script for a promo. Mm-hmm. He gives me the general topic. And he puts me in matches with, if some people might have issues, he'll put me in a triple threat match or a fatal 4-way match, or if we're getting new people in Money in the Bank, I'll be in there to help them get through. And he does that to me and Benji both. I guess I can call us problem solvers. We did I don't know if it was a Money in the Bank or just a ladder match, but we had a Money in the Bank or a ladder match at one point where these two guys almost got in a fight in the middle of the match, and me and Benji, being the generals that we were for that time era, we were able to diffuse the situation before it was able to escalate. So, hands-on in wrestling, complete creative control essentially over my character. Obviously, I don't write the stories, but I give ideas, and a lot of my ideas are generally accepted. So, wrestling-wise, balls to the wall nowadays. I don't go out there, I don't put forth the effort, to set up the ring or to take the ring down. Because I've done that over the years.
Yeah.
I feel...
Paid your dues?
Yeah, I feel it's time for the newer guys to pay some of the dues. Yeah. So, and I've talked to Roddy about it. I told Roddy, you do a lot of work, you should, let some of the newer guys take the workload. Because, Tommy and Andy and all of them, they've paid partial dues, but they weren't at any W shows back then when we were setting up their rings. At first, they didn't wrestle with us. We wrestled for a few years before either Tommy or Andy came in. When we were setting up the shows, we were taking care of everything, doing all the promos, and can't talk about the legal activities, but when we were younger, we were able to acquire props to use for the show due to five-finger discounts. But we went through and did all that work. So Tommy's more involved with the training nowadays, and Tommy's had the vehicle, the truck, to be able to transport some stuff when we need stuff transported and things. So I'd say I'm definitely quite involved with everything I do. I try to put a lot more focus off of the wrestling towards, daughter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a union steward at work. So, as are you. And we both know that's a lot of fucking shit.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Sometimes there's not even anything worth fighting for. These people want us to go to bat for them.
And we still have to...
Yeah, I'm kind of just standing there scratching my head like, well, I don't know how to fill out this grievance. Like, you're not actually grieving something that is...
But, I was a part of, we'll call it a video game community back in the day that participated competitively on a platform to... We participated for prizes. I mean, we never got really big like, the EA Sports for the big popular game like League of Legends and Street Fighters and all that stuff. But probably everything except football, I was pretty much all in on. Take a cheesy, corny phrase, YOLO. You only live once, so you might as well do it to the fullest while you can do it.
Sure. You were a huge, intricate part of UIW even existing when I decided to get back into the wrestling scene, because you wanted to do the crossover of XCW without the permission of Fletcher, which ended up being a really bad idea in the long run. But at the time, made for a good story and made for a lot of really good YouTube view counts. So, but yeah, you played a huge part in that, bringing guys in and doing a crossover program, and yeah, I absolutely let you wing it because you evolved so much over the years. You kind of are like a Chris Jericho because you get better with every run. So yeah. I hope to see that this time in your XCW run as well. I mean, don't break out a list or anything, but
that was actually a pretty good gimmick. I wish I would have thought of that first.
Well, Jimmy Jacobs did, so give him full credit.
But yeah, the UIW thing with XCW, it was a brilliant idea, and I was a big part with some of the ideas that went on. Like we did the first opening spot where everybody jumped me and stuff, and I took everybody's finisher or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate culmination, the big tag team match, yourself, Rob Slater, Casey too crazy, and then somebody else. It was 8-on-8, wasn't it, or was it 6-on-6?
I think it was an 8-man tag. I think it was 4-on-4, yeah.
And then it was myself, Tommy, Andy, and somebody else. I don't remember. But then coming down to, I think it was myself. No, I think I eliminated second. And then we did the spot where it came down to you and Andy, and then I turned on, Andy. And
you always fit that bad guy role. Your ego's too cocky to fucking be
and I always
a
fight,
baby.
I always fight to be a face. I played a face probably from 2005 all the way up until 2008 or 9. Yeah, somewhere around there. And where I turned on Fletcher and reprised my role as the most hated guy. But when we were younger and we had the face and the heel, it wouldn't matter who faced. It was a popularity contest.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody cheered, regardless if he was face or heel. Everybody cheered Ryan Hallgarth, regardless if he was face or heel. Fletcher never really got a big pop. I always got I never got cheered, even when I was a good guy. No matter what I did, I could have did a 450 corkscrew planche off a roof, and they're like, "Boo! It's Chris." And then I reprised the role as LOL, and to this day, the biggest pop in the history of XCW. So, it's just a big popularity contest. Nowadays, with some of the people that are coming and watching the shows, they're starting to get, more appropriate pops.
Mm-hmm.
Like, faces are kind of getting cheered more, and the heels are actually getting booed there.
Yeah.
Versus...
I think that line's real blurry in the wrestling community anyway. Ever since the NWO in Austin, we're supposed to be heels.
I make sure everybody knows that I'm a heel, but I know...
You do it like Kevin Owens? Because Kevin Owens pulls off a heel.
I know that when the moment I turn face, like, I fight every day, grit and grind, because I don't want to be a face. I mean, you can ask Fletcher, you can ask probably the majority of the people that still backyard wrestle to this day, maybe even professional wrestlers, but a lot of the majority is everybody wants to be a heel.
Yeah.
And if something flip-flops and, someone doesn't show up to a show or you get screwed somehow, you might get put in a situation where you might have to turn face. Like last show, we had somebody not screw us over. He didn't show up. He also didn't show up the show before, screwed us that show. But, I was going to get pushed into a title picture, but the thing was I had to become a face because the guy just got established as a heel. So, I mean, for him to flip-flop, it's understandable that he should be the heel.
Yeah.
But me coming back the way I did, I came back, interfered in Fletcher's match, cost him the match. I'm in the biggest heel stable currently, biggest heel team with someone that's trying to take over the company. I didn't think it was good for me to turn face either. Like, it would just defeated the whole purpose of the way I came back and what my character is being established as, which is a hitman to take out newer talent.
Mm-hmm.
So I essentially fought to turn down a title picture. And no one turns down a title picture.
Yeah.
So I got moved, in the rankings of championships, I got moved down to a different area because I was able to convince that guy to become a face. Because he'd always want to feud me. He never got a chance to feud me. The one time he was supposed to feud me, he did something stupid, jumped off a roof and broke his ankle. So now he's finally getting his wish, which is to be able to feud me, and I'm still a heel. So as long as I'm a heel, I'm happy. But if it comes down to the point to where I have to be a face, as long as it's done the right way and not just I'm thrown into a face picture because we're screwed over, as long as it's done right, I'm fine with it.
I always felt like it was easier to work being a bad guy than it was a good guy, just because I think human nature is just to be an asshole anyway. So I think that just comes more natural to people. So you mentioned the championship, the title picture. Do you think that is essential for telling a sufficient story, or
no.
Title not required?
Title's not required to sell an efficient story or to establish someone as a main eventer. One of the best matches, it's not the best match, but one of the best matches that was ever in XCW was between LOL and Dylan Bostic. We were established as cruiserweights, and cruiserweights main event of the show. Yeah, it was for a title, but even if it wasn't for a title, it would have still been the main event match. The EBW, XCW storyline where I invaded, my company invaded XCW. I had a tag team championship the whole storyline, so not the entire storyline, but throughout the whole storyline, the only title I had was tag team championships. And even if no titles were involved between EBW and XCW, that was probably one of the biggest storylines that XCW's ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So title is definitely not necessary. The implications of adding a title adds something to the picture.
Yeah.
Brandon Hobbs was part of the EBW, and then he won the title, and we figured he was going to get too big for what the picture for us was, which the ultimate goal was to shut down XCW so EBW could reign supreme. So we jumped Brandon Hobbs because he won the world title, and it was because that they added the world title to the picture that we were able to do that. But the world title wasn't the main focus. The main focus came down to me wrestling Andy.
Mm.
For the winner, their respective brand, won Ultimate Control. And we did the surprise spot to where Gabe, which was the guy that interfered and was supposed to be my retirement match, came out, distracted Corey Lee, and I gave Corey Lee the Code Breaker, the FML, the REM, whichever respective name you want to call the Code Breaker. And EBW actually won. We did the surprise, people were legitimately surprised. Only like 6 people knew it was happening.
Oh, no kidding.
Just the people involved in the match.
Yeah.
And then, Fletcher's girlfriend, which is currently his enemy in the show, came out, restarted the match, and then Benji turned on EBW, and ultimately XCW won, but no title was involved in that picture whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think it pushes the superstars in the storyline to be able to strive to do better things, to escalate it past the title picture. Chris Jones has not always been the world champion, not always been any champion whatsoever, but I've always been able to push myself to be always in the back of the main event pitcher's mind. I've always been somewhat involved with the main event pitcher. Like, I cut my first promo back was about taking out everybody on the roster. Currently, the champion's Brandon Hobbs, and he was one of the people I mentioned in the promo. So, like, always pushing that thing at Chris Jones in the back of everybody's mind. The people watching, the superstars, just for future storyline purposes.
Yeah.
I've just been able to develop that mentality to help in case something were to happen. Like, well, Chris mentioned Brandon in this promo. Well, we can throw Chris with Brandon in this show. Oh, Chris mentioned taking out Tommy, so we can throw Chris with Tommy.
Yeah. I think that's a good mentality to have, and I think that it helps keep you relevant. But I think you're always going to be relevant in the environment that you're in. I just think that you're always one of the top talents, period. Yeah. Whether there's a belt on you or not, I think a belt or a strap or a championship or title or whatever we're supposed to call it is more of an Academy Award or an Oscar to say, hey, yeah, you were the best at what you did. And I think if you're a part of the title history, then sometimes that's good enough. I mean, and you've definitely been a part of plenty of title histories. So earlier on in the podcast, you briefly mentioned the legal troubles. I don't know, can you talk about that at all? Or can you give your side of the story of what happened? Because, I mean, people are familiar in a general vicinity or general way, but maybe not entirely. So can you elaborate?
I can go into a little bit of detail, but not overly too much.
Okay.
Mainly back when I was younger, I think I was like 21. I was in an inappropriate relationship with someone I shouldn't have been. And due to the fact, it was brought about somehow, I'm not sure. I never found out how it was brought about. But ended up ultimately leading to my arrest, and I was in prison for not entirely time. I mean, obviously, Shelby County and stuff, but I was incarcerated for 11 months, 7 days, 14 hours, and 53 minutes. Not counting the seconds, though. And honestly, it was like being incarcerated, like even from like the littlest bit of contact, like even like, I mean, I think we've become better friends since UIW and stuff, but like even like I call them the mediocre friends, like the people I don't talk to every day that tend to lean more towards acquaintances. Like you even miss them when you're locked up. Granted, you get the visitation every 14 days. You get contact visits, which is way better than county jail and stuff. Just like the little bit of contact, and like a very good thing, Josh Fletcher came to my visits. So I was still, obviously I wasn't wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I was still in on what was going on, and I was able to talk to one of my friends outside. Because I didn't get many visits or many calls from people, like obviously, but I wasn't able to call many people. So the times that I did get to spend, like my stepmom that pretty much raised me since I was 3, she was there pretty much every 14 days. My real mom, not nearly as much as her. But my stepmom was there a lot. My girlfriend at the time, which is currently my girlfriend now, again, she was there every 14 days. And then a lot of people don't know, Chris Jones used to go to church. I went through the youth groups. I went through the confirmation class. I was in 2 Christmas plays. I had 2 different wives. Joseph is a pimp. I had a guy that was they call them church mentors, because when you go through a confirmation class, you have to it's like a mentor program. And I had him come visit me. He visited me like every 16 days or whatever, because he was still teaching at the time. He's a teacher, yeah. John Orem. So he came and visited me. I had quite a few visits. So I mean, but it was the most miserable time. Granted, I still occupied my time best I could. basketball, volleyball, gambling, even though we're not allowed to gamble. Whatever I could do to find occupy my time. And like I've met a couple people I actually knew, like Adam Joyner, that I went to school with, was in there with me for a brief amount of time. And then another guy I knew, John Gayheimer, was in there with. I used to play basketball with him before I ever started wrestling in Rushville when he used to hang out there. So it was probably a really dark time.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets used, like not necessarily prison time, but for the inappropriate relationship gets used a lot. People try to incorporate that into, like, if they cut a promo on Chris Jones, like they'll bring up Jolly Ranchers or Sandbox references or whatever. And it's old.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me anymore.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, sometimes the more personal, the better the promo, but sometimes
but after
you have to know a limit.
But after it's overused, I don't, like, there's people that are still, I think Andy cut a promo. Our coming back to XCW promo for the show Glory, which was supposed to be my retirement show, I think he mentioned a Sandbox or something in there. And, like, it's been used so many times. Fletcher's used it when we feuded, and it's just over. You got to come up with something new material, like. And I don't do a lot of stuff to give people material, so they dab back into the cookie jar.
Yeah.
It gets overused and overplayed, and that's why it doesn't bother me nearly as much anymore. The girl's mom, I mean, a lot of people don't like her, but she spoke for me and tried to keep me out of trouble. So probably one of the reasons why I got, as we'll call it, the amount of time that I got and didn't get more, but
which still seems like a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
I've had my fair share of incarcerations, and
I'm still paying for it. Still on probation until December 27th, 2020, and a lot of rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just the restrictions are killing me. Restrictions restrict certain, like, activities I'm allowed to do. Like, obviously on probation, can't leave the state.
Sure.
Like, but they're more super strict that I can't leave the state. Like, just the stuff I'm required to do, like I have to take a polygraph test every 6 months. It's retarded.
Mm-hmm.
They're adding new rules to everybody on probation, regardless of what they got in trouble for. You got to call in every day now. Find if you have to take a drug test.
That. Yeah.
When I've taken less drug tests calling in than when they called me to make me take drug tests, which makes no sense to me. You pass or fail a drug test, you have to pay for it. Pass or fail a polygraph, you have to pay for it.
Oh, wow. What do those run?
Between $225 to $275. Money out of my pocket every 6 months.
Wow.
But I'm still striving. I'm still out here surviving. A lot of people, when I was leaving incarceration, they've been there, 5, 10, 15 years. They're like, you'll be back. You'll be back. It's impossible to make it on probation for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still out here.
Yeah.
I'm not back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know, but when I got out, December 27, 2012, both my great-grandparents passed away in the month of February. Like, I guess that's like an old person thing. Like, if they've been married for so long, like, their bodies and minds are, like, so intertwined. Like, they'll pass away not too far away from each other.
Sure.
My great-grandpa died first. My great-grandma was already sick. And then she ended up passing away not long after it. And at my great-grandpa's funeral, the last thing I ever got that she ever said to me was, prove him wrong. So, ultimately, that's my goal. And proved him wrong so far.
Yeah, here you sit.
Another 3.5 years left, however long it takes to get there, so.
All right, well, we took a deeper, darker turn there, but I kind of want to get that out in the air and make people more informed instead of jumping to conclusions or coming up with their own assumptions, because I know how that can be, and
oh, yeah.
It's kind of a shitty aspect to people, but people are kind of shit. So back on track with the wrestling. Tell me your favorite run with any storyline that you've been involved in.
There's been a few things. Probably my first big break in yarding. We had a double ladder match. Kurt Acid Benji. And me, just newly established Y2J Chris Jones. It was a weird concept, 2 belts hanging, 2 different locations. And the goal is, obviously you want to grab both belts because then you're both champions, but led to Benji grabbing, Kurt Acid grabbing the hardcore title. I grabbed the light heavyweight. And back then I considered it like an upgraded championship. I consider it like a more well-established, hardcore, light heavyweight, European, Intercontinental World title, etc. And to be able to do that was pretty interesting.
What was Kurt Acid doing in a light heavyweight title match?
You tell me. You wrote it. You wrote it.
Man, he must have been a smaller guy back then.
Like, I always wanted to, we never really got to form, a consistently well-together team, you and me. The first, I believe, we did that Americans. Mm-hmm. It was me, Rob Slater. It didn't last long.
I think the twins, the Tharps, were a part of that, too. But they were written off pretty quick.
But, that was pretty good. But the biggest run is a close run, but I'd say the biggest run is probably my feud with Cynical Ryan Hallgarth, because he no longer wrestles. He hasn't wrestled in... he showed up and wrestled 2 minutes of a tag team match for a big thing. He came back home for a visit with his family from his station at the Pentagon or whatever. And but consistent wrestling, our feud still goes. He's not even in the company.
Mm-hmm.
He works at the Pentagon, and the feud still goes. You never know when a Cynical will show up and attack Chris Jones. You never know when Cynical will show up at Chris Jones and Cynical will attack somebody else. So that's probably, it's the most well talked about feud that I've ever been a part of. And even people that haven't wrestled in XCW, they have heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the most popular one. And then there was the Untouchables, a team name I came up with when I ran EBW. We did this thing where Roddy had some legal issues, and Roddy came back from whatever. And his big return, we wrestled at his house. Roddy's family's there. Everybody's fucking screaming, cheering. Roddy comes back, saves Fletcher from me and James Cerebral, attacking Fletcher, I think it was, and he saved him. Leads to a tag team match later on in the day. And this tag team match was pretty epic because a guy that's now, he refs with All-Star and he refs throughout the state of Indiana. His name's William Whitty.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be William. Last name used to be Kunkel. Wrestling name was Carnage. He was the referee. So we do our wrestling match, and then in the match, the ref turns.
Oh yeah. And
helps me and James Cerebral beat Roddy on his day back in front of his family, and it was probably the most epic heel thing I've seen in a long time in backyard wrestling. And we beat the piss out of him. The locker room poured out, tried to save him, and we just annihilated everybody. And we pulled 2 kids out of the audience at the time. I powerbombed a kid on a cookie sheet, and then beat up some other kid. And his family was they were shocked.
That's awesome.
It built for that big hype, and the Untouchables was really big. It was I'd say it was 4 or 5 of us in the Untouchables, and then when I went through my legal issues, and they wrote me off with a leg injury, it was taken over by Andy, and the Untouchables kind of imploded, but, a heel team of egos.
Yeah.
What's bound to happen eventually.
Yeah.
And it's still played off to this day. Andy's just not a good leader, and, if Chris Jones would have been around, what the Untouchables, would they still be here to this day? And who knows? But it also led to the ability of, when I was starting my return from my leave, pretty much coming back, and I was feuding everybody, the Untouchables and the team that formed to take out the Untouchables. They played some cryptic music and messages during their matches and stuff. So it led to some good things, but overall, probably the best storyline is probably the Cynical one. Mm-hmm. But I enjoyed the Untouchables, the EBW versus XCW, and I enjoyed the Untouchable Entourage.
I enjoyed that
Because I pushed.
It was the wolf pack to your original Untouchables.
I pushed and I scraped and clawed. You're like, it's not gonna work. We don't have enough people. I'm like, it will work, and we did the thing with Zoe McVeigh and the breakup of the Untouchables. I was sad to see it go. And
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun working that with you.
She was a fucking trooper.
Yeah.
Taking a fluorescent light bulb and you put in a promo where Benji was supposed to kiss her and he pussed out.
She's so hardcore she was gonna kiss Benji.
Yeah.
Fuck the light bulb.
The one chance for Benji to kiss a real woman.
All right, so my next question would have been, what's your favorite opponent to square off with? But I would assume Cynical is probably top notch for you.
He's definitely, but probably Tommy. Tommy's really good, and he's willing to try almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's called MC Bomb. It's what I call it. Billy Kidman's BK Bomb. It's kind of like a version of the Sky High, somewhat, where it's like a stick their hands under the armpits or whatever, and he pushes them out and sits down with them. We call it the MC Bomb. Tommy let me MC Bomb him off a roof through a table. No, through an ironing board is what it was. Through an ironing board. And Tommy, Cynical, Austin Chaos. I liked working with you because you're willing to try anything at least once, and I guess every match has a certain person. Like working with Roddy in the death matches that we had was really fucking awesome. We beat the piss out of each other. Roddy gave me a Blue Thunder bomb on concrete.
Again?
Threw a steel chair at my face. Was wrapped in barbed wire. I lit firecrackers off Roddy. So, but it's a really tough decision to name number one.
Mm-hmm.
But me and Cynical just flowed so well together. He worked at Wendy's at the time that we started the feud. I worked at McDonald's. So it was the Wendy's, McDonald's.
It started from fast food.
But
that's hilarious.
I'd say it's probably a tie up there for number one. I can't pick a clear-cut winner.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that the Dave's Quarter Pounder Burger is a lot better than any Big Mac that McDonald's can offer me.
Yeah, I called off McDonald's all the time. I tried to get them to fire me. I went there to pick up my last check.
You should have just came on a cheeseburger. I hear that works. I don't know.
I picked up my last check or whatever, and I was giving them my uniform. They're like, "What are you doing? You work tomorrow?" I'm like, I'm not gonna show up tomorrow. They're like, well, here's your check anyways. Like, okay, well, I'm trying to throw these clothes. I threw the clothes away, and then they wouldn't fire me. And the McDonald's thing was actually a bad idea because I was in Spanish club, and I was a pretty good Spanish student. And I was trying to earn, if you do so well in Shelbyville, you get to earn a free trip.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where. I think it would have been Spain when I graduated.
Probably. Yeah.
And but it just so happens the Spanish teacher I had for Spanish 2 was Mr. Rice, and Spanish club's required for Mr. Rice. So because of my dad making me work at McDonald's, it kind of it kind of cost me the Spanish trip because I probably would have got it.
So let's touch on something that we've talked about lightly, kind of treaded water with it, but we both know that there's always been bad blood within the local scene. That'd be Fletcher and me. I guess, have you ever thought about taking off and doing your own thing? But you kind of answered that in the essence that you did the EBW. Is that what it was? EBW. So you kind of had your own reign over everything at that point, right?
Yeah.
Were you filming?
Yeah.
And whatnot?
Are
you on YouTube with that? Or?
No, this was way back when I had a shitty.
You need a VCR to watch EBW tape?
I had I think Fletcher has a couple EBW shows, but we filmed the majority of them. Some of them the tapes were damaged, but I think Fletcher has a couple of shows on camera. And I'm gonna be honest, they weren't good shows. It's not like storyline purposes. Just the people that wrestled in EBW weren't motivated. Some of them were XCW superstars. Some of them were younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
It was just to get that wrestling out there more. The shows that weren't on tape were honestly probably the better shows. Like, there were shows we actually did at my house, and we had a ladder match, and I jumped off a roof, and the stuff we...
So you should have just ran house shows strictly?
I guess, I could handle doing it, but, like, I don't have as short of a fuse as Fletcher, and I'm not as more adamant about doing stuff. Like, a lot of times, like, we'll trudge or through the rain if we have to, but now that we have a ring, it's a little different. So if it's like rain really hard or whatever, you really don't want to run at all if it's raining at all.
Mm-hmm.
But there's rain in the forecast for our show tomorrow that they're gonna do, and it's hit and miss, and he's still gonna try to risk it. I'm not like, if that was me, I'd be like, okay, well, we're just gonna have to cancel this show. And granted, yeah, it hurts the storylines and it hurts, but you got to think about the money you have invested in. We haven't paid for the ring yet.
It's not paid off completely?
No, Phil's the one that bought the ring.
Oh, so he is fully invested in it, and then you're just paying him back.
They've paid some payments on it or whatever, and then like the last when we had all the rainfall a couple weeks ago, and actually was it a couple weeks ago? Well, at some point we had to postpone a show, and like it was a shitload of rainfall. It rained for like 3 weeks straight, and like his yard was tore up, and they still wanted to do the show, even if it wasn't raining. I'm like, well, his yard would get tore up.
Yeah.
And
have you guys thought about renting a venue or seeing how much it would cost to do that?
People have mentioned it to him in the past. It's just as we venture off towards that area, like, you know, renting a venue or whatever, we become more independent, and I think it just puts too much pressure on it. And like when wrestling loses, like when I have no fun with wrestling anymore, I will be done for good. I won't come back. And I'm still currently having fun. I feel like if more pressure were to get put on like Fletcher and Roddy, because they're the two primary financial people for XCW, where it goes like buying, you know, the curtains or the designs and stage and stuff. I think if more pressure gets put on, they're going to put more pressure on us, and I mean,
you'll get burnt out inevitably.
Yeah, I don't want to get burnt out because I enjoy wrestling. I don't have cable, so I don't watch wrestling. I get every Tuesday and Wednesday, I get the highlights on YouTube from WWE and TNA and whatever.
Yeah.
So if I were to get burnt out, I think it would just like I'd lose all interest in wrestling. Like I already don't play wrestling games anymore. So
I think you're kind of missing out. I think 2K's heading in the right direction, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. I think the best wrestling game is like the second SmackDown.
Oh, Here Comes the Pain?
No, like the second PlayStation SmackDown.
Oh.
Because if you remember right, you have like the little jank-ass 4-player adapter, and 2 people could play the season.
Yeah.
And go off on like their own little stories or whatever. I played like a lot of that with my uncle. So.
Yeah, that was pretty dope. How did you weigh out your options then and determine where your loyalty would lie whenever the competition was so stiff and things were the harshest that they were between like Fletcher and myself? Like how did you determine where your loyalty lied in those points in time? Or did you just were you just like a people pleaser and you kind of...
My loyalty lies with me. At the end of the day, everybody, regardless of who you are, whether you're a people pleaser, in your mind, your ultimate goal is you need to take care of yourself. You need to do what's going to make you happy, not just do something to please somebody else. And I've always told Fletcher that I'm always going to wrestle. Like, if UIW and XCW was wrestling concurrent, I'd be wrestling with both. I love to wrestle. I'm going to wrestle. You're one of my good friends. He's one of my good friends. So I'm going to wrestle regardless. I'm like, if I didn't want to wrestle at all and you both begged me, I wouldn't wrestle. But I'd say my ultimate goal is to do and please myself. That brings up some issues with my girlfriend. She feels I need to do more things to make her happy. But
women.
Being locked up for as long as I was, well, not nearly a year, but almost. It messes with your mind a little bit. So, I didn't have much privacy, so I'm all about my privacy. I don't like people standing behind me. I don't like people going through my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I like things done a certain way. Like, we come back from the grocery store. Stuff gets put up. I go back in there and check and see if it's where I want to put it. It's weird. But, my loyalties will always lie with me, but I will lean more towards the people that have actually never turned their back, never caused any issues on me. That's why me and Ryan Hallgarth are such good friends. Everybody hated me at first when I met them in XCW. I mean, I had a big ego. I was arrogant. I was egotistical, and it was understandable. And then, we really had to sit down one day. And they're like, what's your problem, Chris? Because I was doing stuff to where I would go in, my first show, April 16th, 2004, I kept interfering in people's matches. Like, I'd run out and I think I hit Benji with the international title, Intercontinental, whatever it was. And, you could tell it was irritating everybody. And, we had that sit down, and things got better. And then I got to know Ryan more. I didn't hang out with them nearly as much until after, we were out of high school and stuff. And I know Ryan's got my back regardless of what happens. Always been on my side in every situation. And to a certain point, Fletcher's got my back. To a certain point, and I know to a certain point, you got my back.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, everybody's going to do what's best for them, what's best for their family. So I'm going to say my loyalty lies with me.
I mean, that makes sense, absolutely. Let's talk about the pros a little bit as we wind down here. Were you a WCW or WWF guy?
At first, I was a WCW guy. Like I said, I was big into the cruiserweights. And
Old school Sting?
Yeah. WWF, that's something they didn't have back then. They didn't have cruiserweights really for a long time. And then
and their attempt was
everybody was an NWO mark.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I like the Wolfpack. So I guess it is NWO. But I wasn't marking out for the white and black. I like the red and black because mainly red and black's my favorite colors. Chicago Bulls colors. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. Seeing Sting with the red and black face paint was cool, and it had Conan in it. They had a diverse. Whereas black and white NWO they were picking up everybody.
Yeah, they were diverse, but they were too diverse.
People that didn't fucking belong and that were nobody.
Yeah.
Like Buff Bagwell.
Yeah.
I didn't know who the fuck Buff I didn't know he existed until he joined the white and black. And there was Scott Norton.
Yeah.
Then I think at one point they had Ultimo Dragon and stuff.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. It was pretty atrocious.
The cruiserweight thing is what attracted me to WCW, and that was a lot of had to do with my uncle. Those were the main pay-per-views that my uncle, my grandpa, my great-grandpa ordered. But
so when did you start watching the WWF? What was the turning point? Was it the buyout or?
No, it was before then. Sable Mark Marrow days, I guess, started leaning towards it. And then my uncle got turned on to Stone Cold. And my uncle wrestled in EBW, Stone Cold Tim.
And I can't imagine what that gimmick was.
to this day, my uncle is a big Stone Cold mark.
Yeah.
So, but seeing Stone Cold and
DX, were you a DX
The
fan?
Rock, I was a DX fan.
Yeah.
But probably leaned towards Stone Cold with my uncle too. So.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your favorite WrestleMania overall? Can you think off the top of your head?
I think all the ones that had the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys and the TLC. My favorite live WrestleMania performance. I know Fletcher's going to scold me if I get this wrong and he actually listens to this podcast. I think it was WrestleMania 19. I think that's the one Limp Bizkit performed at. It was whenever Undertaker and Nathan Jones were supposed to wrestle the A-Train and the Big Show.
Yep, that's 19.
But Limp Bizkit performing Crack Addict, and that just got me pumped up for that WrestleMania. It was the Stone Cold and the turning point for Stone Cold and The Rock's.
Yeah.
It was their final match. And I'd say probably 19 was one of my more favorites.
That's fair. Also had more of an undercard match, but Shawn Michaels versus Jericho was a really good match on that card too.
Jericho turned heel.
Yeah, kick to the nuts. Yeah.
WrestleMania 30 was pretty good too, mainly for the opening segment. Do you remember WrestleMania?
The nostalgia, was that the
Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, and The Rock, where Stone Cold announced the wrong fucking place?
Yeah. Good stuff. What about your favorite WrestleMania match?
Oh shit, favorite WrestleMania match. That's a tough decision, but I'm going to have to say, if it's not a tie, this one's pretty close to the top, but recent. Shane McMahon and AJ Styles.
Oh, okay. Not a bad choice. They could have main evented that WrestleMania.
To see Shane McMahon, I don't know exactly how old he is, 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
To be able to still do some of that stuff, like Shane McMahon went for a shooting star.
Yeah.
AJ Styles is nearing his 40s, if not already in them. And see how acrobatic AJ Styles is. It's probably one of my most favorite matches. Obviously, the TLC matches, like I said, with the three teams, the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy Orton and Seth Rollins was a really good one.
It was a badass spot.
I actually did that spot.
Oh, no kidding?
And one of the last few shows we did before in a ring, a kid named Kevin Harris, we actually did the curb stomp into the RKO.
Did you guys practice it too?
Yeah, but the funny thing was we couldn't get it in practice.
That's exactly what Orton and Rollins dealt with. They couldn't hit it in practice, and they were like, fuck it, we'll do it out here live. And
that's
so
why
yours turned out the same way?
Yeah, that's why if it's like a big move like that, I just said I'm not practicing that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And we just go out there and fucking do it. If it fucks up. So I'm entitled to one every now and then.
All right, so 3 final questions, 3-question round. Does Chris Jones have what it takes to take it to the next level? If the Indies came calling your name, does Chris Jones have what it takes to be an independent star?
I believe I do. I've thought about it quite a bit. I think some of my priorities might hold me back a little bit, whereas trying to spend as much time with my daughter as possible. And I've put my body through a lot already. But if the Indies came up calling and I had the chance to take full hold of that run, I think I could be a big star. Dylan really wanted me to travel. Before Dylan was really good and famous and stuff, he wanted me to travel around with him. And it was really close to doing it, but then priorities changed. I got more visits with my daughter and stuff, so she's primarily my main focus.
I get that 100%. I did get to travel with Dylan a little bit. Got to experience life on the road with him here and there, but it was a cool experience. Not even being a part of like the training aspect, but just kind of meeting the wrestlers and behind the scenes of what happens, and to see how Dylan interacted with the guys when they're not in character. It's kind of a cool experience.
The big thing would be trying to come up with a name, because I think I have a little bit of an advantage, because I know a lot of the independent wrestlers probably don't care for me, because when you train and then you go back to yarding or whatever, they take it as a slap in the face, but it wasn't fun for me at that time. And I'm not well established on YouTube or whatever, but there's people that watch the YouTube shows. There's people that look at XCW on Facebook. That people know who Chris Jones is. And if they were to force me to like establish a whole new like persona, like drop the whole Chris Jones thing, if I didn't have to drop that, I think I would have an advantage. I'd be well more established. Just add a prefix or something.
Yeah.
Let me go from there. I mean, Dylan Bostic's still Dylan Bostic. Whether he's the superstar, the rising star, the all-star, Dylan Biohazard Bostic, whatever, wherever he jumps through, whatever he changes name to, style, or whatever, he's still got the Dylan Bostic part. I think if I were to be able to keep that and go into the independent scene, I think I would have a small advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think that there is a Chris Jones out there because I play this game called TEW, and it's like a text-based wrestling sim where you book matches and you book angles. And always in the free agency, there's Chris Jones, and I'm like, this motherfucker is over? So I click on it, and it's a picture of not you. So there may be that one downfall that there is a Chris Jones, but he could be a British star or some shit like that.
Yeah, could be a piece of shit, too. You never know.
Every Chris Jones I know is, so I guess. Take back one thing in life. What would it be?
A lot of people think this is an easy one for me to answer. I'd say it'd be one of two things. Obviously, my legal issues. Never went through the inappropriate relationship phase, and got in trouble for that. And never dumped the girl I dated in high school. We were... This makes it sound like a wrestling match. We worked well together. Sounds kind of cheesy, but she's really the only girl that I've ever truly, truly loved. I'd have probably died for her back then. And being young and out there, trying to date as many girls as possible, it ultimately led to me dumping her for no. I didn't have a good reason other than I wanted to date the girl across the street. So, probably those two I'd take back. But lean more towards the legal issues and stuff. I'd like to take that back because if I never went through the legal issues, I'd probably have custody of my daughter right now. So.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that it worked out that way. But when your probation's all cleared up and whatnot, do things change? Will it ever get better?
It can. She's been living with her aunt for 4 or 5 years now. So, whereas I didn't really get the option when I was younger, I think being as me and her aunt have a really good working relationship together and we communicate quite well. I think we're going to give her the option. Mm-hmm. If she decides she wants to stay there, I'm perfectly content with that. If she wants to live with me, I'm perfectly content with that as well. And not only do I have a perfectly good working relationship with her aunt, she's also dating my cousin. So.
Oh.
So I've actually known her aunt since I was 10. So, known each other for a really long time.
Yeah.
So everything works well together. I mean, I'd like to have custody, but
what's your daughter's name?
Corey.
Corey?
Yeah.
That's a pretty name. Okay, so let's say your retirement is finalized, Chris Jones. One last match in you. It's your final go. Fletch can book it however you like. Who's your final opponent? How does it go down?
Fletch can book it or I can book it.
Well, apparently you work for you, so you can book it.
My last match would be for whatever wrestling company it is. My last match needs to be a fatal 4-way TLC match between Ryan Hogarth, myself, Tommy Merriman, and I'd like to see you in this TLC match for my last match, XCW, UAW, wherever it was. And don't get me wrong, I have no problem wrestling Fletcher, and it's got to the point to wrestle Fletch and Roddy so much that we don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
We just do.
Yeah.
We just know what's going to happen, when this is going to happen. Very little conversation is ever had. And, the only talk that is had is, the funny moments. There's been times where, I was wrestling somebody, and they picked me up for a tombstone, and as they picked me up for a tombstone, I was singing their entrance song to them. Just the small stuff.
Yeah.
But, I've wrestled Fletch and Roddy plenty enough to where I've not wrestled... I wrestled Ryan his entire XCW career. But me, Josh, Roddy, we're still ongoing. So, I got to wrestle them a lot more. So, I'd like to Ryan, Tommy, me, you, TLC match, world title.
Fucking A. I would love to see that. All right, do some shameless plugging if you want. Do you have any Twitter handler or?
Well, I don't have Twitter. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Fuckspace or anything like that.
Though.
But I do got twitch.tv/CNET123123. You can check out my YouTube channel, which is still a work in progress. Still learning the YouTube ways. I haven't changed the name of it, so look up Christopher Jones on YouTube. Find some interesting videos there. Wide variety gaming content, wrestling stuff, anything I like. All my music videos, whatever you want to see.
Right on. All right, you can also check out archived footage of Chris Jones on YouTube by searching for what would be my channel, or typing in the UIW Shelbyville. Or you can check out his current run and Hall of Fame speech. I believe it's on there, right?
Yeah.
Through XCW. And the latest happenings of Chris Jones via XC Wrestling 1. And that's all one word. And the 1 is a number, not spelled out. All right, Chris, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for answering all these questions. And hopefully this is the beginning of something beautiful. And I appreciate you sitting down, man.
I'm definitely interested in seeing the future outcome of the Circle Jerk podcast.
All right, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that wraps up this week's episode in the first Circle of Jerks podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed your hour and a half away from all the things you should have probably been doing. Thanks for tuning in and just listening to two old friends cut up and bullshit a little bit. But on the topic of bullshitting, if you guys could do me a favor and head on over to anexerciseinbullshitting.com. Our site is a little under construction at the moment, but on our site you'll find links to our latest podcasts, blogs, and merchandise in the future. You can find an assortment of ways to reach out to our founder, Rob Cox, through the site as well. We welcome feedback, criticism, dick pics, and whatever else you want to send our way. You can find me on Facebook or tweet at me at Justin_Parsley. Thanks for listening in, and I hope to see you all back here next time.
Look what you did, you little jerk!